This video is going to have a look at responding to the 2011 HSC Question 11, Explain the Role of the Ecumenical Movement and/or Interfaith Dialogue as Religious Responses to Growing Secularism. Include examples in your answer. The first question to ask is, which dot point does this question address? And that is given away in the question in terms of ecumenical movement and interfaith dialogue. The dot points ask us to describe the impact of Christian ecumenical movements in Australia, namely the National Council of Churches Australia, or the NCCA, and the New South Wales Ecumenical Council. The second dot point asks us to evaluate the importance of interfaith dialogue in multi-faith Australia. The responder can use both of these dot points. This response, however, is going to only refer to interfaith dialogue as religious responses to growing secularism. This question asks us to explain, but the dot point asks us to evaluate the importance of interfaith dialogue in multi-faith Australia. Therefore, it could be a good idea to put in some of that high modality that indicates the importance of the role that interfaith dialogue plays in responding to growing secularism. Words such as crucial, imperative, vital, highly significant, monumental, immeasurable, pivotal are words that indicate the degree of importance of interfaith dialogue in response to growing secularism. To evaluate means that you need to know about recent initiatives that respond to the current events in the Australian religious landscape. Those current events being secularism. We'll look at some recent initiatives further on in this video. The other dot point that can be referred to in this question is secularism. So we have two dot points, the main one being interfaith dialogue, but also secularism that need to be referred to in this response. The first thing that we need to do is have a look at some definitions. So what is interfaith dialogue? Interfaith dialogue is a formal discussion aimed toward developing greater mutual understanding between different religious traditions. Different traditions, through the process of interfaith dialogue, choose to work together on common projects, have interfaith prayer services, and stand publicly united on significant issues. Importantly, what interfaith dialogue is not. It is not a forum for debate where you try to prove the superiority of one belief system over another, nor is it a means by which you try to evangelize others into your faith tradition or convert others to your faith tradition. Equally, it is a good idea to define secularism as a rejection of religious beliefs or adherence, non-religious response to life's questions. So why is interfaith dialogue important in an increasingly secular country such as multi-faith Australia? And we can see this in the benefits of interfaith dialogue, in that it promotes understanding, tolerance, dispels ignorance, and is imperative for a harmonious, peaceful society, particularly a multicultural country such as Australia. So now that you have defined interfaith dialogue and secularism, you need to provide examples in your answer. So how is interfaith dialogue achieved? It's achieved predominantly through religious leaders working together through organisations. One organisation is the Australian National Dialogue of Christians, Muslims and Jews, which can be found on the NCCA website, namely the Australian National Dialogue of Christians, Muslims and Jews. You can scroll down and have a look at their initiatives, which provide an opportunity for national bodies of each faith to come together and build understanding and harmony in the Australian context. And how have they done this? In 2003, the dialogue examined key concepts in each religion, which have led to misunderstanding and tension, e.g. jihad, Zionism and the Trinity. Subsequent dialogue meetings have shared and discussed issues such as the meaning of peace, festivals and prayer. You can also see an example in 2016 when the Grand Mufti of Australia condemned the murder of a French priest by Muslim extremists as an attack on all religions. And this report can be seen in the Catholic Weekly. The Catholic Bishop Anthony Fisher with the Grand Mufti and other representatives, which is summarised here. Another example of interfaith dialogue is the hosting by Archbishop Fisher of the annual Iftar dinner. And you can read about that dinner on the Catholic Weekly website, and you might like to scroll down and have a look at that event in more detail. And as we scroll down, we see that it's not just a meeting between Muslims and Christians, but also between Muslim leaders as well as leaders of the Jewish faith. And it has been summarised here. Also, the example back in 2015 of Catholic and Muslim leaders joining together to plead for clemency for the 2 Australians on death row in Bali. And that can be seen again with Archbishop Anthony Fisher and the Grand Mufti Ibrahim Abu Muhammad meeting together to join forces to plead for these 2 young men to be spared the death penalty in Bali. And an obvious example, as recognised by the Cambridge text, the provision of studies of religion in the New South Wales HSC is in itself an example of interfaith dialogue, as students from different faith traditions and no faith tradition learn about other faiths so that they enter the adult world with a more in-depth understanding of the key ideas within that faith tradition. Of course, there are other examples as well. Research the International Day of Prayer and Peace, the Evangelical Alliance, Australian Christian Lobby, Hindu, Buddhist, Muslim and Jewish faiths. So in all, interfaith dialogue is about social cohesion in an increasingly multicultural, multi-faith society in Australia. It's about building understanding, goodwill and a sense of community. It considers issues as a whole community, that is, issues that are relevant to the lives of everyday Australians. Interfaith dialogue encourages and allows individuals to learn about each other and different faiths. It encourages activities such as coming together in prayer, making media statements against unjust causes, social issues such as terrorism, and it encourages activities such as days of prayer and projects of commonality within and between faiths. It's important for young people with their idealism and enthusiasm of youth in terms of directing that to the benefit of others, particularly in a world where religion is taking a back seat in so many people's lives due to secularism, which is part of that individualism, consumerism, materialism within our society in Australia today. So now what you need to do is use the ideas from this video to respond to the 2011 question 11 using interfaith dialogue to answer that question.